My mother never speaks loud when she's doing wrong. She whispers, amid the clatter of spoons on saucers at my birthday cafe. She leaned toward my sister. While everyone's still here, go and change. I smiled like I hadn't heard, but my military instinct told me the thing being changed tonight wasn't a lock. When an unknown phone vibrated with a detective's name, I knew this was no longer a reunion. It was an investigation. My name is McKenna Webb. I am 33 years old, and I am sitting in a lie. The lie is shaped like a birthday party. The place is the Docklight, a cafe clinging to the Tacoma Wharf like a barnacle. It smells of burnt espresso, old wood, and the specific kind of cheap perfume that mixes with damp wool. The lighting is weak, a dim yellow that makes everyone look tired and sallow. A saxophone bleeds old jazz from a speaker in the corner, a melancholy sound that suits the gray water I can see through the fogged-up window. I've been home for 72 hours. Before that, I spent 8 months at a deployment readiness exercise, a world of dust, precision, and logistics containers, at Aegis Reserve Command. My job is simple. I track assets. I know where every piece of equipment is, where it's going, and who signed for it. Accountability is the beginning and the end of my world. Here, at this table, accountability is a foreign language. Across from me sits my mother, Marlene Barrett. She is the architect of this gathering, a woman whose control is absolute, as quiet and suffocating as the fog outside. She is immaculate, her posture rigid, a polite, frozen smile painted on. She organized this welcome home party for me, which conveniently doubles as my 33rd birthday, an event she has not acknowledged in at least 5 years. To her left is my father, Thomas Barrett, a former Marine. He still carries the tension of active duty in his shoulders. Though he's been a civilian for 2 decades, he stares into his black coffee, his jaw tight. He is the muscle behind Barrett Tactical Logistics, BTL, the family business. Barrett Tactical Logistics. They supply non-lethal equipment to the military and law enforcement. Riot gear, restraints, tactical lighting. It's a clean, profitable, gray area business. It is also the silent, demanding entity our small, cold family orbits. My father runs operations. My mother handles the books and the contracts. And I ran away to the reserves to avoid being pulled into its gravity, only to find myself in a parallel world. Beside me, functionally absent, is my sister, Piper. She's 21, a generation removed from the tension, or at least pretending to be. Her entire world exists on the glowing screen of her phone. She's tapping, swiping, oblivious, her thumb a blur. She is the designated favorite, the one shielded from the mechanisms of the family engine, the one who was never expected to understand the cost of things. A slice of generic cheesecake sits in front of me, condensation beating on the plate. The frosting is too sweet. I've taken 2 bites. It's just good to have everyone together, Marlene says, her voice loud enough for the table, a brittle performance of maternal warmth. But her eyes are not on me. They are on Piper. My father grunts in agreement, stirring his coffee. The tiny tink-tink-tink of the metal spoon against the ceramic mug is the only sound he's made in 10 minutes. It is a nervous, rhythmic sound, a poor substitute for a heartbeat at this table. I watch my mother lean in. The performance stops. Her posture softens just enough to create a cone of privacy, her silver blonde head tilting toward my sister. Her voice drops to that familiar, conspiratorial whisper, the one that means a decision has been made, an action ordered, the one that always preceded a storm in my childhood. While everyone's still here, she murmurs, her gaze flicking toward me for a microsecond, just long enough to confirm I was occupied by the cheesecake, before settling on Piper. Go and change. My blood does not run cold, it goes still. At Aegis, we call this the pivot point. The moment a routine transport mission is redesignated as a high-risk recovery, the moment the intelligence on the ground changes, my training kicks in. I force a smile, lift my fork, and scrape at the decorative raspberry swirl on the plate. I analyze the whisper. Go and change, not the locks, Not your clothes, just change. A verb, an instruction. Vague and specific all at once. It's code. Piper's head snaps up, her phone-induced trance broken. She looks confused, then annoyed. Now? We just got the cake. Now, Marlene says. The whisper is gone, replaced by quiet, immovable steel. It is not a request. Piper sighs, a dramatic, put-upon sound that belongs to a teenager, not a 21-year-old. She slides her chair back, the wooden legs scraping loudly against the floor. Her keys jingle as she pulls them from her designer purse. She stands, and for a second, her eyes meet mine. There's no malice in them, just the blank obedience of someone who has learned that asking questions only makes things more complicated. She walks away, past the bar, and out the front door. She does not look back. I turn my attention to my father. He is stirring his coffee. He has not taken a sip. He is pretending to be invisible, a tactic he perfected years ago. He heard the whisper. He knows what change means, and he is actively, pointedly, choosing to be a piece of the furniture. So, I say, my voice artificially bright, loud in the small silence Piper left behind. 8 months, the desert was dry. My father nods, his gaze fixed on the black vortex in his cup. It usually is. McKenna, my mother says, her smile snapping back into place. Eat your cake. The air at the table is thick and cold, colder than the untouched cappuccino cooling in front of me. Piper is gone for a long time. An hour, or near enough to it to make no difference. An hour is an eternity at a table steeped in silence and unspoken agreements. My mother attempts conversation. She asks about my benefits, if the pay in the reserves is really worth the time. She does not ask about the work. She does not ask if I am happy or tired. She assesses my value as an asset, just as she does with BTL. It's stable, I offer, the word tasting like ash. Stability is important, she agrees, though her definition and mine are worlds apart. Her stability is control. Mine is knowing the truth. My father finally speaks, his voice raspy. They're cutting contracts. The whole DoD budget is unpredictable. He's talking about BTL. He's always talking about BTL. Logistics are always necessary, I say, a statement of fact. Perhaps, Marlene cuts in, her eyes sharp, calculating. But some logistics become liabilities. Things get lost in the paperwork. This isn't a family chat. It's a probe. She's testing my armor, seeing if the 8 months away softened me or hardened me, seeing if I am still the daughter who looks too closely at the manifests. I give her nothing. I am a blank wall. I am the logistics specialist. I observe, I record, I do not react. But inside, my heart is running a mission drill. The whisper, the keys, the hour-long absence. Piper, who cannot be trusted to file simple invoices, sent on a critical mission. The old jazz saxophone hits a sour, drawn-out note. I feel a vibration in my pocket. I ignore it. I am focused on the door. The bell above the docklight's door jingles, letting in a gust of cold, wet air. Piper stumbles back in. She does not look like the annoyed 21-year-old who left. She looks terrified. Her face is pale, a stark, sickly white under the cafe's yellow lights, and her mascara is starting to run. She does not go to her seat. She walks straight to Marlene, her hands shaking so badly she has to clutch her phone. "Mom," she says, her voice too loud, cracking in the quiet cafe. Marlene's eyes narrow. "Piper, sit down. You're making a scene." "Mom," Piper insists, breathing fast, her chest heaving. "There are cops at McKenna's apartment." My father's spoon finally stops. It clatters into his saucer. He looks up, his eyes wide with a fear that is not new, just newly surfaced. I am already moving, pushing my cheesecake away, my muscles tensing for action. "What did you say?" I ask, my voice low and level, cutting through Piper's panic. "There's police tape," Piper says. tears welling in her eyes as she looks at me, really looks at me, for the first time all night. Yellow tape, all over your door. They've taped it off. The landlord was there. They said, "Spit it out, Piper," Marlene snaps, her control breaking, her voice turning to ice. They said they're waiting for her. As if summoned by the word, my phone vibrates again. This time, I pull it out. An unknown number, Tacoma area code. I stand up, swiping to answer, my gaze locked on my mother. "This is Webb." The voice on the other end is professional, tired, and holds zero ambiguity. "Ms. McKenna Webb, this is Detective Evan Rios, Tacoma Police Department. We're at your residence. We need to see you, urgently." The drive from the docklight was a blur of wet asphalt and red taillights. I left them all at the table, Marlene, frozen in a mask of polite concern. My father, finally looking up from his coffee, his face ashen. Piper, actively crying into a napkin. I said nothing to them. I simply showed Detective Rios's name on my screen, said, "I have to go," and walked out. Now, the blue and red lights of a Tacoma PD cruiser pulsed against the brickwork of my apartment building. They smeared the rain-slicked street with frantic, artificial colors. This was my neighborhood, my safe civilian space, and it was now a scene. A uniformed officer held up the yellow tape for me, his expression flat and professional. "McKenna Webb?" "That's me." The tape was strung across my own front door. Unit 4B, a heavy industrial-looking seal, bright white plastic with official red lettering, was plastered over the lock and the jamb. The officer by the door, Detective Rios, was waiting. He was a tall man, with a face that looked like it had seen too many late nights and bad cups of coffee. He wore a rumpled trench coat that was dark with rain. He did not smile. "Ms. Webb, thank you for coming in. I'm Detective Rios." "You said it was urgent," I said, my voice flat. I was already in assessment mode. My eyes scanned the hallway. No neighbors, just the damp, quiet hum of the building. "Your building manager found the seal and called it in about an hour ago," Rios said, gesturing to the door. "But the entry, we believe, happened earlier today. Let's go inside. My people are done." A forensic tech was packing a black case by the elevator. He nodded to Rios and left. The detective broke the seal on my door and pushed it open. The air inside was stale, wrong, my home, my meticulously organized, sparse, controlled environment. It felt violated. "Nothing appears to be broken, nothing stolen, as far as we can tell," Rios said, walking ahead of me, "which is what makes this strange." He was right. The door wasn't damaged. The frame was clean. No splintered wood from a kick, no scratches from a pick. Someone had used a key, or at least, they had opened it without force. My gaze swept the living room. Cushions were straight. My laptop was still on the desk. My mail was in its neat pile. This wasn't a robbery. This was an insertion, an intelligence op. Rios was in the small kitchen area, pointing to my dining table. "We found this. It was placed dead center. We bagged it, of course." He held up a clear evidence bag. Inside was a simple, cream-colored envelope. Just an envelope. "And this was on the table, separate from the envelope," he continued, holding up a second, smaller bag. Inside it was a single sheet of paper, folded. The note itself, we gloved and sealed the envelope. He set the bag with the note on the counter. Through the plastic, I could read the words. They were typed, not handwritten, impersonal, clean, like a business memo. "Tell your sister the truth always comes home." My breath hitched, just for a second. The world tilted, then snapped back into sharp, cold focus. "Tell your sister." My mother's whisper echoed in my head. "Go and change." "Do you have a sister, Ms. Webb?" Rios asked. "Yes, one. Her name is Piper." "Does this message mean anything to you? Is she in some kind of trouble?" I looked at the note. This wasn't a threat from a stranger. This was a message from my family, disguised as a threat. Or was it a warning? My mind raced through permutations. Marlene was the sister who needed telling? No, that was too convoluted. This was simpler. This was theater. Marlene, the director, had staged this whole event. My family, is complicated. Detective, I said. This message is meant to look threatening. I think it's a manipulation.
A manipulation by whom?
I didn't answer. I looked at the other bag, the one with the sealed envelope. You gloved and sealed it? I asked, pointing. Standard procedure, Rios said, his eyes watchful. The tech who handled it wore gloves, sealed it right here on the table. No, I corrected, my voice sharp. You don't understand. The envelope. Look at it. He picked up the bag. I pointed. It's a sterile evidence envelope, but it was already sealed, with a gloved hand, before your people got here. That's not your seal. That's a forensic evidence seal. Someone left it like this. Rios's professional exhaustion vanished. He looked closer, his eyes narrowing. You're right. That's a professional seal, not ours. It was staged to look like we'd already processed it. They wanted to slow you down, I said. Make you think the note was already handled, or that it was contaminated. They were buying time. Who is they? The person who got in. I walked back to the front door, running my fingers over the high-security deadbolt I had installed myself. You said there was no forced entry. That's because they had a key. We checked, Rios said, pulling out a small notebook. Spoke to the building manager. He keeps a master, but he says a technician from the building's maintenance service, a Logan Vale, was here this afternoon. Said he was here on a tenant request. Your request. I've been on a military base for 8 months, I said. I haven't requested any maintenance. That's what the manager realized, after the fact, when he saw the police tape. And the key? I asked. Vale has a pass key for routine jobs. He's supposed to sign it out and in. Records show he did. So, Logan Vale is your suspect? He's our person of interest, Rios corrected. We brought him in. He's cooperative. A little too cooperative. Says a client called the service directly, paid cash, and requested a wellness check and lock inspection at this unit. He was told to check the apartment, secure the lock, and leave a new key under the mat. Did he? No key under the mat, and he says the lock was fine. He came in, looked around, and left. He claims he never left any note, and he's adamant he was just following a client request. The client, I said. Who was the client? Rios flipped a page in his notebook. The fluorescent kitchen light gleamed on the damp paper. That's the second strange thing. The maintenance service got a call, but the payment was more interesting. A direct bank transfer, $2,400, for a lock inspection. An overpayment, I said, to guarantee service and silence. Exactly, Rios said. The transfer came from an account under the name M. Barrett. M. Barrett. Marlene. I felt the last piece of the lock click into place. It was a cold, satisfying, and terrifying sound. My mother's name is Marlene Barrett, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. My sister's name is Piper Barrett, but the family business account is Barrett Tactical Logistics. So, M. Barrett, Rios mused. Could be your mother, could be a coincidence. My mother doesn't believe in coincidences, I said. She believes in plausible deniability. This was Logan Vale. He was paid to get in, but he didn't have a key that worked. Rios looked confused. But he used his pass key. No, I said, my mind finally assembling the timeline. He couldn't have. I changed this lock. The day before I deployed. It's a multi-lock. Military grade. It's not keyed to any building master. No one has a key to this lock except me. I watched the detective process this new information. The undisturbed door. The high-security lock. The maintenance man who claimed to have been inside. Then how? He lied, I said. Logan Vale lied. He never came in here. He was paid the $2,400 to say he did. He's the distraction. He's the official story. Then who got in? Rios asked. Someone with a key I never made. I looked at the door. This lock wasn't bypassed. It was changed, and then changed back, or a copy was made, and the person was sloppy, or my mother's whisper, "Go and change." Rios was lost. I didn't blame him. "Detective," I said, "let's go back to the note. Tell your sister the truth always comes home. You ran it for prints?" "Of course. Nothing. Clean. But we ran the envelope, the one staged to look like evidence. It had one clean, perfect print, right on the seal. We ran it. No match in any system." "It wouldn't be," I said. "The person who left that print isn't a criminal. Not officially." "What do you think they were here for, Ms. Webb?" Rios asked, his voice quiet. "What did they change?" I looked at him, the tired detective caught in the middle of a war he couldn't see. "The truth," I said. "They were here to change the truth." I left the apartment just before midnight. Rios and his team were gone. The yellow tape was gone, but the ghost of it remained. The landlord, a nervous man named Mr. Henderson, had hovered in the hallway, wringing his hands. I don't want any trouble, Ms. Webb. The police." "The police are gone," I said, pulling my coat tight. "I'll handle the lock." "Yes, of course," he said, relieved to be given a task. "I'll call Logan first thing in the—" "No," I said, cutting him off with a cold finality that made him flinch. "You will not call Logan Vale. You will not call your maintenance service. I will be handling my own security from now on. You will give no one access to my apartment. Not for maintenance, not for wellness checks, not for anything. Do you understand?" Yes, of course." I walked out into the rain. The night air was sharp, and it smelled like the ocean and diesel. I sat in my car, the engine off, and let the silence of the street settle. My mind was no longer a civilian's. It was a logistician's. I was assessing a compromised supply chain. My mother, Marlene, was the commander. Piper was the unwitting courier. Logan Vale was the decoy, the expendable asset. The objective? To enter my apartment and change something, to plant that ridiculous, theatrical note, to create a narrative. Why? My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new text. An unknown number. Not Rios. I opened it. The message was short, anonymous, and to the point. "Don't confront them tonight. They are wiping the traces." My blood went still. But this time, it was the cold stillness of confirmation. An ally, or a co-conspirator trying to cover their own tracks. It didn't matter. The intel was good. Confrontation was my mother's game. It was emotional, messy, and designed for her to win. My game was different. My game was logistics. It was about evidence, chains of custody, and undeniable facts. I started the car. I did not drive to my parents' house. I did not drive to a hotel. I drove to a 24-hour hardware superstore. At 1:30 in the morning, I was back in my apartment, the door wide open, a pile of tools on my floor. I had a new, high-security deadbolt, a brand that I'd never used before, one that I knew for a fact BTL did not have in its procurement catalog. I photographed the door. I photographed the old lock's housing. I photographed the new lock, still in its blister pack. I photographed the installation, step by step. I time-stamped every photo and uploaded them to a secure cloud server, sending a single access link to a trusted colleague from Aegis with a simple message. "New asset log. Stand by." The work was methodical, the click of the ratchet, the bite of the drill, the satisfying, heavy thud as the new bolt slid home. This was my world. This was control. I finished at 2:47 in the morning. I did not sleep. I sat in my one good chair, in the dark, and watched the rain lash against the window. The sound was no longer peaceful. It was a rhythm, a countdown. My mother had started the game. She had sent her message. And now, with my new lock in place and the evidence secured, I was ready to send mine. I hadn't slept. Sleep was a luxury reserved for people who weren't calculating the operational range of their own family. At 6:30 in the morning, I was on my third cup of black coffee, staring at the new, gleaming silver deadbolt on my door. My phone rang. It was Rios. He sounded as tired as I felt. "Ms. Webb, I figured you were up."
I am?
"You were right on all counts," he said, the professionalism in his voice now tinged with a grudging respect. The Barrett account wasn't personal. The transfer. The $2,400. It came from a corporate entity. Marlin Services. Marlin. A marlin is a predatory fish. My mother's name is Marlene. She has never been subtle. She just believes she is. "It's a shell company," I said. "It's one of hers, used for BTL discretionary spending, benefits, travel, payoffs. That's what it looks like to us, too." Rios agreed. That information was enough to get Mr. Logan Vale to change his story. He was caught in a lie, and he knew it. He's terrified of losing his maintenance license. "He never came into my apartment," I stated. "No, he did not. He was paid to say he did. He was the official narrative, but he wasn't hired for a wellness check. He was hired to retrieve a file. He was supposed to meet someone at your building, pick up a package, and hold it. But the pickup never showed." "The pickup," I said, "was my sister." "Looks that way. When she was a no-show, Vale panicked and left. But he knew what he was supposed to be getting. He was told to ask for it by name. A file folder labeled Transit Q3 Adjustments. The coffee in my cup went cold. My blood went colder. This wasn't just a domestic squabble. Transit, logistics, Q3, quarter 3, adjustments. That's the word Marlene uses for making the numbers match. This was a BTL operations file. This was the engine room. "Does that name mean anything to you, Ms. Webb?" "It might," I said, my voice flat. "Thank you for the update, Detective." I hung up. I knew my next move. Confrontation was her game, not mine. But today, I would play on her field. I drove to my parents' house, the one I had escaped years ago. It was a large, modern colonial in a neighborhood where the lawns were manicured and the silence was weaponized. The front door was unlocked. It always was. Control, not security, was the priority here. The smell hit me the second I stepped onto the marble entryway. Bleach. The sharp, acrid scent of industrial-strength cleaner, stinging my nose. And under it, something else, something thick and cloying, a French vanilla-scented candle, burning in the foyer. It was the smell of a cover-up, the smell of anxiety being scrubbed from the air. Marlene was in the kitchen, wiping down an already immaculate granite countertop. She was dressed in a gray silk blouse and black slacks. She was ready for battle. "McKenna," she said, feigning surprise. Her voice was bright, brittle. "Darling, what a nice surprise. I was so worried after last night, that dreadful business at your apartment. Are you all right?" "The performance? It was always a performance." "Who paid Logan Vale, Mom?" She didn't flinch. She just kept wiping the counter in smooth, methodical circles. "Logan who? I have no idea what you're talking about. The police called me, asking questions about my daughter. It was utterly mortifying." $2,400, I said, walking closer. "From Marlin Services, to retrieve a file." The wiping stopped. She turned, her grip on the wet sponge so tight her knuckles were white. The performance was over. "Oh, that," she said, her voice dropping, becoming businesslike. "It was a simple accounting error, a misunderstanding. I was trying to fix it. It was called Transit Q3 Adjustments. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a BTL operations ledger." "You were always too dramatic, McKenna," she sighed, turning away. "It was a minor discrepancy. I needed a file. I thought you might have kept a copy from when you were helping us last year, before your deployment. I was simply trying to protect this family." "By staging a break-in at my apartment?" "I was trying to fix a problem before it became a problem," she snapped. "Something you, with your rigid, simplistic worldview, would never understand." "And Dad?" I asked, looking past her. "Does he understand?" I looked into the den. He was there. Thomas Barrett, My father. A former Marine reduced to an accessory. He was sitting in his favorite leather armchair, completely hidden behind the broadsheet pages of the Wall Street Journal. He was pretending to read. He was perfectly, deafeningly silent. "Dad?" I said, louder. The paper rustled, a single, sharp crack as he turned a page. He did not lower it. He did not speak. This was his move, the disappearing act. He was the silent partner, the man who let Marlene handle the wet work, the man who benefited from the contracts she signed and the lines she crossed. His silence was his signature. He was complicit. He was a coward. "So you're both okay with this?" I said, my voice rising. "Sending a decoy into my life? Using my sister? For what?" "For this family," Marlene hissed, stepping forward. "For this house. For the company that pays for your military hobby." My phone vibrated. I ignored it. My focus was on Marlene. It vibrated again, insistent. I held up a hand. "Wait." Marlene scoffed, but she fell silent, curious. I pulled the phone from my pocket. A text from Piper. "I have to tell you, I'm so sorry. I didn't do what she said." My thumbs froze. I typed back, "What did you do?" The whisper, at the café. "Go and change. It wasn't about your lock." I stared at the screen. The entire operation pivoted. What did it mean? The reply came instantly. "It's the record safe, at the BTL office. She made me change the combination." A second text followed. "She said you had a scan of a file. She said you were holding it, that you were going to use it. She said I had to change the master code before you could." The pieces didn't just fall into place. They slammed together. The sound of a vault door locking. The apartment break-in, the theatrical note, Logan Vale. It was all a feint, a brilliantly constructed diversion. The real operation wasn't to get a file from my apartment. It was to secure the original file at the BTL office. The break-in was designed to put me on the defensive, to make me look guilty, to make me think they were on to me. Change was the internal code, the operational command, and the file they were locking down was transit Q3 adjustments. I looked up from the phone. The knowledge must have changed my expression, because Marlene's face, her real face, was watching me. "Who is it?" she demanded. "Your detective friend? What lies is he telling you?" "It's Piper," I said, lowering the phone. "She told me about the safe." I saw it. For 1/10 of a second, the mask of the unflappable Marlene Barrett vaporized. It was replaced by pure, cold, undiluted fear. She had lost control of an asset, her most loyal asset. Piper had defected. She recovered immediately, just as I knew she would. Her best defense was a blistering offense. "She told you?" Marlene's voice was sharp, ugly with scorn. "Then you know. You know I had to protect this company. From you." She advanced on me, the forgotten sponge still in her hand, dripping bleach water onto the imported tile. "From that secret scan you're holding on to, that file you copied, you thought I wouldn't find out? You thought I wouldn't know?" "The transit file," I said. It wasn't a question. "You were always so self-righteous," she spat, her face inches from mine. "You came in, helping with the audits, with your little spreadsheets and your military process, and you copied it. You were waiting, planning. What was the plan? McKenna? Blackmail? Were you going to blackmail your own family?" The accusation hung in the air, thick and toxic as the bleach. In the den, the newspaper was absolutely still. My father had stopped breathing. I held my ground. I let the silence stretch, forcing her to wait for my answer. I took a slow, steadying breath. "I copied it," I said, my voice low and calm, cutting through her hysteria. "I copied it 8 months ago, the day before I deployed. I copied it because I saw the adjustments. I saw the shell companies. I saw what you were doing." I took a step closer, forcing her to take a step back. The power dynamic shifted, right there in her sterile kitchen. "And I knew, one day, you would need a scapegoat. I knew you would try to frame me for it." I looked her dead in the eye. I'm not holding it for extortion. Mom, I'm holding it for protection. The room was utterly silent. The only sound was the heavy tick, tock, tick, tock of the grandfather clock in the hallway. It was no longer a clock. It was a countdown. Marlene's eyes were blazing, but the anger was now mixed with something else. The fear I had seen earlier. The terror of a commander who has just realized her enemy has a copy of her playbook. I had what I came for. Confirmation. I turned, my boots quiet on the marble floor. "McKenna," Marlene's voice was a command. "You will not walk out of here. This is not over." I stopped at the doorway. I looked back, not at her, but at the silent newspaper in the den. It's over for today. Then I turned my gaze back to her, my face as cold and hard as the new lock on my door. "If you need anything else from me, Mom, send an email. We're done with whispers." I paused, letting the words land. "And if you ever send anyone into my home again, they will not be dealing with Detective Rios. They will be dealing with me." I turned and walked out the front door. I pulled it shut behind me, not with a slam, but with a quiet, final click. I didn't look back, but I could feel her eyes on me, watching me through the window. I knew the look on her face. It was fear, and it was rage, and it was just the beginning. I left my parents' house and drove not to my apartment, but to a secure co-working space I kept a membership at for just this reason. My apartment was a compromised asset. My family home was enemy territory. I needed a sterile environment. I sat at a bare white desk in a room with 5 other silent professionals, just another freelancer under the harsh fluorescent lights. But I wasn't working on a startup. I was dismantling an empire. My training at Aegis is built on one principle. In a crisis, you do not react, you process. You establish a timeline. I opened my secure laptop and started a new document. I mapped the events, starting with the whisper at the café, the feint, the apartment break-in, and the theatrical note, was designed to conceal the primary objective, changing the combination on the BTL record safe. Marlene wanted the transit and Q3 adjustments file secured before I even knew it was in play. This meant 2 things. First, she was sloppy. She had launched a cover operation that, by its very nature, told me exactly what she was trying to hide. Second, she was scared. She was scared of the file. I had that file. I pulled a military-grade encrypted USB drive from a hidden pocket in my wallet. This was the copy I had made 8 months ago. The insurance I took the day I saw the signature. I plugged it in. Before I opened it, I messaged my old unit liaison at Aegis Reserve Command, a data integrity specialist. "JP, I need a favor. I'm verifying a hash on a legacy file. Civilian side. Need you to confirm the checksum I logged 8 months ago." I sent him the alphanumeric string. 2 minutes later, he replied, "Hash is clean, matches your log entry from 0800, March 4th. Whatever it is, McKenna, it's exactly as it was when you backed it up. You good?" "I'm good," I lied, and disconnected. The data was uncorrupted. My copy was pure. I opened the file. Transit Q3 ADJ scan, PDF. It was just as ugly as I remembered. It wasn't just an adjustment ledger. It was a confession. I started tracing the discrepancies Marlene had been so desperate to fix. The first thread, Northline Outfitters. BTL had written off a massive shipment of tactical gear, night vision goggles, high-end restraints, as defective, a 40% loss on the books. The shipment was routed through Northline. A quick search. Northline Outfitters was a shell, registered to a post office box in Delaware. The second thread, Quarry Ridge Parts. This company was receiving payments from BTL for expedited shipping and procurement fees on contracts that were already fulfilled. Pure, liquid theft, siphoned directly from the operations budget. The third thread, Halberd and Company. This one was paying consulting fees back to BTL, but the payments were being routed to an offshore account, not the main BTL coffers. 3 shell companies, 3 different methods of fraud, all detailed in this single ledger. But the real, physical sickness hit me when I found the authorization memo. It was a document authorizing the defective write-off, the one that sent the gear to Northline. It was a standard Department of Defense validation form, and it was signed by me. Webb. The signature was a credible forgery of my own. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't just theft. It was the construction of a gallows, and I was the one they intended to hang. I checked the metadata. The PDF was scanned at the BTL main office. I pulled the IP address from the originating email signature. It was the main server at BTL headquarters. I cross-referenced the date. I was at Fort Irwin, California. I was in the middle of the Mojave Desert, running a live-fire logistics drill, while my mother was in Tacoma, signing my name to a federal crime. I kept digging. The defective shipment to Northline. It had a destination, a warehouse address in Nevada. I pulled up a satellite map. The address didn't exist. It wasn't a warehouse. It was an empty patch of scrub desert, 10 miles outside of Fallon. They weren't just writing off defective gear. They were making entire shipments vanish. They were billing the government for equipment, then having it disappear into a non-existent warehouse, only to be, what? Resold on the black market? Reabsorbed and sold again under a different contract? The sheer scale of it was breathtaking. This wasn't just fixing the books. This was multi-million-dollar contract fraud. And my name was on the authorization. My personal phone rang. A sharp, unwelcome sound in the silent office. It was an official number. Aegis Command. Ms. Webb? This is Mr. Davies, from the Security Clearance Office. His voice was bureaucratic, cold. Yes, sir. We're calling to inform you that your security clearance has been temporarily suspended, pending a review. My world stopped. Suspended? On what grounds? We received a flag from a civilian law enforcement inquiry in Tacoma. Case number TPD 2248, it, in turn, flagged your association with an entity currently under preliminary financial scrutiny, Barrett Tactical Logistics. Marlene's faint, the break-in, the police report Rios filed. It had worked, not in the way she intended, but it had worked. It had put my name in a system, cross-referenced it with BTL, and thrown up a giant red flag. My mother, in her sloppy attempt to frame me, had just grounded me, my career, my escape, my entire life outside of her, gone. I understand, I said, my voice a hollow monotone. You are not to report for duty, access any Aegis facilities, or handle classified materials until this review is complete. Is that clear? Crystal, I said, and hung up. I sat in the silence, the hum of the co-working space fading. This changed everything. She had just taken my shield and my sword. I was no longer a soldier. I was just a suspect. I had one move left. It wasn't a family move. It was a scorched earth move. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I had memorized but never used. CID, Agent Rowan. Agent Lila Rowan, I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the panic and rage churning inside me. My name is McKenna Webb. I'm a logistics specialist in the Aegis Reserve Command. My clearance was just suspended. I'm the one you're going to be investigating, and I'm the one who is going to hand you the entire case. I met Rowan an hour later in a coffee shop I'd never been to, halfway across the city. She was all business, her eyes sharp, her posture radiating an intensity that matched my own. You're taking a massive risk, Ms. Webb, she said, after I gave her the 60-second summary. If this is a fabrication, you're not just losing your clearance, you're looking at federal prison. It's not a fabrication, I said. I slid a new, clean USB drive across the table. This is a copy of the Transit Q3 ledger. You will find 3 shell companies. You will find a shipping manifest for a non-existent warehouse in Nevada. And you will find a DoD authorization form with my forged signature, time-stamped with an IP address from BTL headquarters, on a date when I was on official military duty at Fort Irwin. Rowan took the drive, her expression unreadable. And the break-in? A diversion. My mother, Marlene Barrett, staged it to make me think they were stealing the file. when in fact they were securing the original. After my sister changed the safe combination, the police report was an unintended consequence of a sloppy op. "You're handing me your entire family, Ms. Webb." "They're not my family," I said. "They're a criminal enterprise that has been using my name. My priority is clearing my jacket. You're my only path." She nodded, slipping the drive into her pocket. "You're a witness now. You're not an investigator. Go home, lock your door, and don't touch anything else." I left her there and drove home, but I wasn't going to just sit tight. I still had one asset in the field. I had given Piper a identical encrypted USB 8 months ago. I had told her it was insurance. A copy of my new will and apartment lease. I had lied. I told her to keep it hidden, just in case. But I knew my sister. She was curious, and she was weak. The file I had given Piper was different from the one I gave CID. It was watermarked. It contained a single, invisible pixel that, when the file was opened on a machine connected to the internet, would send a ping to a secure email address I controlled. I had set a trap 8 months ago, hoping I would never have to use it. I spent the evening sitting in my dark apartment, watching my inbox. The hours ticked by, 10 o'clock, midnight, 1 in the morning. At 1:13 in the morning, my laptop chimed. A new email. Subject, ping, asset 02, activated. The watermark had been triggered. The file was open. The email provided the IP address, a residential address in North Tacoma, Piper's apartment. My phone was in my hand before the chime faded. I called her. She picked up on the first ring, her voice a terrified, choked whisper. "McKenna?" "She's there, isn't she?" I said. She just left." Piper was crying, a high-pitched, panicked sound. "Oh God, McKenna. She was here. She tore my room apart. She kept screaming, asking what I told you, what you gave me. She said you were trying to set me up, to make me the scapegoat." "And then she found the USB," I said. "Yes, she made me open it, on my laptop. She sat right here, watching. She made me scroll through all of it, the numbers, the names. She had this cold look on her face. Then she just left. She took the USB." Piper was dissolving into hysteria. "What does it mean? What was that file? She's going to hurt me. McKenna, she's going to blame me." "Piper," I said, my voice sharp, cutting through her panic. "Listen to me. She's not going to hurt you. She's terrified. She just confirmed that her other daughter has an identical copy of the evidence. She was checking your file against her original. She was testing your loyalty." "What do I do?" "Nothing," I said. "Go to sleep." "Sleep? Are you crazy?" "You're an asset. Piper, your job right now is to be exactly who you've always been. Scared, compliant, and ignorant. You delete our call log. You do not text me. You do not call me. And if she asks you anything else, you cry. And you tell her you don't know. But do not delete anything from your laptop," I said, my voice low, intense. "Don't delete the file. Don't clear your history. That's your evidence. That proves she forced you. Do you understand me?" I think so. Don't delete." "Keep your head down. Piper," I said, my voice softening just a fraction. "And stay off the comms. Mom knows you have a copy. She's going to be watching you. Let her." I hung up. My mother had overplayed her hand. She had confirmed her own fears, and she had activated my last, and most important, witness. The game board was set. The call came in the late afternoon. The sky was the color of wet concrete, and I was on my 4th hour of staring at the BTL corporate structure, mapping the connections between the shells. It was Rios. "Ms. Webb," he said, and the exhaustion in his voice had been replaced by sheer confusion. "I've got a problem. The single print from that staged envelope, the one that didn't match any system?" "You found a match," I said. It wasn't a question. "Oh, we found a match," he said, his voice tight with disbelief. I ran it against the state's executive and high-clearance business registries. It's Marlene Barrett, your mother." He paused, waiting for my shock. I gave him silence. "So, let me get this straight," Rios continued, thinking out loud. "Your mother stages a break-in at your apartment, pays a guy $2,400 to be a decoy, leaves a threatening note, and then leaves her own fingerprint on the staged evidence envelope?" "It wasn't a mistake, Detective," I said, the final piece of that particular puzzle sliding into place. "It was a performance. It's the alibi. If you had found it and confronted her, she'd have a story ready." I could picture it perfectly. Marlene, clutching her pearls, her eyes wide with practiced fear. "Oh, thank goodness. Detective, I was so worried about McKenna. I went to her apartment. I found that awful note and, I don't know, I sealed it. I didn't want to disturb anything. Was that wrong?" It was brilliant. It was her concerned mother narrative, pre-planted for the authorities. It painted her as a victim of the same threat I was. "She was building a false narrative," I said. "She's building something," Rios agreed, sounding grim. "But I'm pulling back. This is bigger than a B&E. The shell companies you mentioned? This is out of my pay grade. Ms. Webb, I've been asked to pass my files on to the feds." "Agent Rowan," I said. "You know her?" "We've spoken. Thank you, Detective." I hung up. My mother hadn't just been sloppy. She had been arrogant. She had assumed she was smarter than the local cops, and she was right. But she had also assumed I was still her pawn, and she was wrong. My other phone, the clean one I'd bought for this, buzzed. It was Agent Rowan. "McKenna, we're moving. The transit file was the key. We've been running the numbers you gave us. Halbert and Company." "The third shell," I said, pulling up my own notes. "The money it's funneling offshore. It doesn't just stay there," Rowan said, her voice clipped and fast. "It's being repatriated, washed, then routed back into a domestic trust account. We just got the warrant for the signatory." "And?" "The account is a Delaware trust," Rowan said. "It's in your sister's name, Piper Barrett. There are just over $300,000 in it." The air left my lungs. A scapegoat, but not just one. She had two. Me, for the federal contracts, and Piper, for the money. If BTL went down, Marlene would point at the forged signature on the DOD forms and say, "McKenna did it," and she would point at the trust fund and say, "Piper stole it." She would walk away clean. I found Piper at her apartment. She opened the door, and she looked like she hadn't slept in a year. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair a mess. "McKenna," she whispered, her voice trembling. "She set you up," I said, pushing past her into the living room. "What? She's scared. She's scared of you." $300,000. Piper, I said, turning to face her. "Halbert and Company. Does that sound familiar? The trust account? The one in your name?" Piper's face went from pale to chalk white. No. That's my college fund. My nest egg." She said it was just a tax shell. A legal way to what? Launder money? "She said it was nothing illegal." Piper's voice cracked, tears of genuine panic streaming down her face. "She said it was just smart accounting, to avoid taxes. She said everyone does it. I just had to sign some papers." "And what else did you do, Piper?" I asked, my voice cold, hard. "What other smart accounting did she have you do?" "Nothing. I just changed the combo, like I told you." "The night of my party, did you go straight to the office?" She flinched, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, but I saw it. She had lied, again. "Piper, did you go straight to the office?" "No," she whispered, her resistance crumbling. She made me meet someone first, at the old ferry terminal." "Who?" "I don't know his name. Just a man, in a truck. I was supposed to give him a slip of paper, and he gave me an envelope." "What was on the paper you gave him?" The new safe combination? And the envelope he gave you? I don't know, she sobbed. I gave it straight to Mom when I got to the office. She said it was just an invoice. My head was spinning. This was bigger. This was a conspiracy. I called Rowan. The ferry terminal, the night of my birthday, around 9:30. Look for my sister. It took Rowan less than an hour. She sent a grainy security still to my phone. There was Piper, looking terrified, at the window of a dark pickup truck. The man inside was a blur. We can't get a good look at his face, Rowan said over the phone. But we got the plate. Run it, I said. We did. It's a rental. Lease to Quarry Ridge Parts. The second shell company. Piper, I said, hanging up the phone, showing her the still. Who is he? I told you I don't know him. Rowan's people are pulling his file now. They'll find him. It was Mark. I think she called him Mark, Piper said, her voice tiny. He smelled like stale beer. 10 minutes later, Rowan called back. Mark Tully, a DoD contracting officer. He was investigated 2 years ago for bid rigging and taking kickbacks. The case was dropped. Insufficient evidence. He's been on our radar ever since. Your mother, she's been working with him. I looked at the transit file on my laptop, which was still open. I searched for Tully. Nothing. I searched for Mark. Nothing. But then I saw it. An email thread, buried in the attachments, from Marlene. Re-Q3. The old passphrase is a liability. We need to change the passphrase for the adjustments. The current one is compromised. Execute the change. Change. It was the code, the internal directive, the whisper at the cafe. It was all there, in writing. I looked at the note from my apartment, the picture of which was still on my phone. Tell your sister the truth always comes home. It wasn't a note from Piper. It wasn't for Piper. It was about me, the older sister, the one who had seen the truth. My mother was taunting me. Logan Vale was a ghost, a $2,400 distraction to send the local cops down a dead-end road, while the real crime was happening at the ferry terminal. My mother, my father, Mark Tully, and Piper, they were all in it. I looked at Piper, who was curled in a ball on her sofa, crying. She wasn't an accessory. She was a pawn, just like me. But she was a more valuable one. She was the one who could move, who could carry the messages, who could sign for the nest egg. And she was the one who had just seen her entire world was a lie. Her doubt was my new weapon. Piper, I said. She looked up, her face a mess of tears and betrayal. She used you, I said, my voice quiet. She put $300,000 of stolen money in your name. She made you an accessory to conspiracy and federal fraud. She used me for my signature, and she used you for your trust. We're her scapegoats. What do we do? She whispered. Nothing, not yet. I started to pace, the plan forming in my mind. The tactical map was finally complete. She's not done. She's arrogant. She thinks she's won. She thinks she's secured the safe, scared me into a corner, and has you under her thumb. She's wrong. Marlene had shown her pattern. When threatened, she doesn't hide. She changes the game. She moves the assets. She's going to make another move, I said, thinking aloud. She's going to try to move the hard copies from the office, or the money from your account. She's going to try another change. And what? Piper asked. We just let her? I stopped pacing. I looked at my sister. Her loyalty was shattered. Her fear was total. She was finally, completely mine. No, I said. We're not going to let her. We're going to make her. We're going to set the trap. We're going to leak that the transit file is in federal hands. We're going to force her next change. And this time, we'll be there, in front of witnesses. When she does it, the leak worked. It moved through the BTL corporate structure like a drop of ink in water. The news that the transit file was compromised and in federal hands hit my mother not like a threat, but like a starting pistol. Agent Lila Rowan called me the next morning. The professionalism in her voice was gone. replaced by the grim energy of an operation in motion. "We have it," she said. "The warrant. We're hitting the BTL main warehouse in 30 minutes. You're the primary witness. Webb, I need you there. Not as a soldier, not as a daughter. As the logistician who knows their system, I need you to point." I was already in my car. "I'm 5 minutes out." The BTL warehouse was not like the house. The house was a sterile performance of domesticity. The warehouse was my father's true home. It was organized, functional, and smelled of diesel, cardboard, and rubber. Rowan and her team were not in tactical gear. They were the white-collar crimes unit, dressed in sober suits. Their presence a quiet, bureaucratic violation of the space. My father, Thomas, was there, flanked by a company lawyer, his face a mask of rigid indignation. He wouldn't look at me. "Agent Rowan," he said, his voice tight. "This is a gross overreach. Our lawyers will—" "Your lawyers can file paperwork, Mr. Barrett," Rowan said, walking past him. "Ms. Webb, the floor is yours." I led them past the loading docks, past the rows of shelving holding restraints and tactical lights. The transit file refers to a specific DoD contract. The authorization, the one with my forged signature, was for a write-off of defective equipment, specifically night vision goggles and high-impulse restraints. We reached the high-value cage. A CID tech cut the lock. "Check the inventory against the defective manifest," I said. It took them 45 minutes. The lead agent looked up, his face grim. "She's right. Agent, the inventory count is short, massively short. It matches the Nevada shipping codes from the file. Item for item." "They were never defective," I said, my voice echoing in the vast space. "They were just stolen." My father flinched. He looked like he was going to be sick. "Where are the hard copies?" Rowan asked, turning to me. "The ledgers, the originals. Marlene wouldn't keep this just on a server." I looked at my father's office, a glass-walled box overlooking the warehouse floor. "She wouldn't keep them in the main office. That's for the day-to-day. She'd create a blind spot." I walked back onto the main floor, my boots loud on the concrete. I scanned the walls, the place I'd spent summers as a teenager, learning a business I grew to hate. "There," I said. I pointed to a metal plaque on the far wall, a bronze-cast BTL logo celebrating 20 years of service. Behind that, a tech used a pry bar. The plaque came off with a groan of stressed metal. Behind it was a small digital wall safe. My father's composure broke. I don't have the combination to that. That's Marlene's." "We don't need it," Rowan said. A tech moved in with a high-torque drill. 10 minutes later, the door was open. Inside were 3 thick binders, shipping slips, invoices. Rowan handed one to me. I flipped through it. The numbers were clean. The manifests were perfect. The shipping codes were all routed through a company I'd never heard of. "This is it," the lead agent said. "No," I said, shaking my head. "This isn't it. This is wrong." Rowan looked at me. "Explain." "These codes, they're too clean. They trace back to a legitimate, third-party logistics provider. This is a decoy. This is what she wanted you to find. A pre-built false trail. She's sending you on a chase, a year-long audit of a clean company." I dropped the binder on a crate. She knew this was coming, this safe, this evidence. It's a trap. Rowan's jaw tightened. She looked at my father, who looked like a ghost. "Search the rest of the grounds," she ordered. They found nothing. The decoy safe had done its job. The trail was cold. I left the warehouse an hour later. The CID team was packing up evidence bags full of lies. As I stepped out into the flat, gray afternoon, my father was waiting by my car, his lawyer nowhere in sight. "McKenna," he said, his voice raspy. He had aged 10 years in 3 hours. I stopped. I did not speak. "Kenna, please," he said, and the old nickname felt like acid. "You have to call them off. This isn't— You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You're complicit." No, he yelled, his voice cracking. I'm a Marine. McKenna. I'm not a criminal. I'm your father. You were a Marine, I corrected. Now you're just her accomplice. His face crumpled. The anger vanished, replaced by a desperate, pathetic fear. Don't tell the military. Please, your career. This will end you. This will end everything. Let me handle it. You had 20 years to handle it. She's not listening to me, he begged. Grabbing my arm, I yanked it away. She's panicked. She's moving things. She's making mistakes. The decoy safe? That was stupid. She thinks she's smarter than everyone. She was smarter than you, I said. Kenna, listen to me, he pleaded, his eyes wild. I can fix this. I can get the real files. She moved them. She thought she was being clever, moving them off-site. And you let her. I tried to stop her, he stammered, the lie visible on his face. The real safe, the real ledgers, they're not here. They're at Hawkshed Storage, Unit 41. He froze. The words hung in the air, heavy and irreversible. He had just betrayed her, not for justice, not for me, but to save himself, to try and prove he was still the one in control. Unit 41, I repeated, my voice flat, logging the data. I can get them. He scrambled, trying to take the words back. Let me get them. We can sort this out, as a family. You just told me where they are. Dad, I said. That's the first true thing you've said all day. I got in my car and locked the doors. He just stood there, a broken man on the wet asphalt, watching me drive away. The moment I was clear, I pulled over. My hands were shaking, not with fear, with rage. My phone lit up, a text from Piper. Heard them fighting. Mom is back. She's screaming about the warehouse, about you. She's terrified. Another text, a minute later. Dad just came home. He's furious. He just yelled Hawkshed Storage. He said Unit 41. McKenna, what is that? Piper had been my asset. She had been my eyes. She had done her job. I typed back, that's the ballgame. Piper, now listen to me. She's going to come for you. She's going to know he slipped up. She's going to panic. The reply was instant. She's already here, in my room. She's asking about the USB, the one you gave me. She's telling me to delete it, to destroy it. My heart hammered. Don't, get out. She's watching me. She says I have to do it now or she'll know I'm with you. She's going to blame me. Piper, listen, do not delete it. That's your only leverage. Send it to me. Send it, then run. The 3-dot typing bubble appeared, then vanished, appeared, and vanished. 10 minutes of silence. My world hung suspended. Then, a new message. It's done. I put it in a courier envelope, addressed to your secure post office box. It's in the system. I told her the file was corrupted and I bleached the drive. I think she believed me. A final text. I'm turning off my phone. I'm going to Sarah's. Please don't let her win. I'm sorry. Piper had made her choice. She had defected. She had sent me the final piece of physical evidence. I drove to my secure co-working space. I sat in the sterile silence, the adrenaline fading, leaving only a cold sense of purpose. I had the location. I had the physical evidence in transit. My encrypted email chimed, an anonymous server, a name I didn't recognize. The subject line, change. The body of the message was short. The CID search was a failure. Marlene is moving the assets. She's cleaning house tonight. If you want to know what change really is, Hawkshed Storage, 9:30 p.m. My blood ran cold. The anonymous tip. It wasn't my father. It wasn't Piper. It was someone else inside. Tully? A BTL employee she'd crossed? It didn't matter. It was the summons. The leak had worked, but it had accelerated her timeline. She wasn't storing the files. She was destroying them. I picked up my phone. I called Rowan. Agent Rowan, I have new intel. The primary storage location is Hawkshed Storage. Unit 41. I have 2 separate confirmations. How? She demanded. A slip of the tongue from one suspect and a digital confirmation from another asset, but that's not all. She's moving the evidence. Tonight, 21:30. Silence on the line. Then, Rowan, all business. 21:30, we'll set a perimeter. Webb, you are a witness. You are not to engage. Go to your residence and stay there. That is a direct instruction from a federal agent. I understand, I said. You have the location. McKenna, she said, her voice sharp. I am not joking. You are emotionally compromised. This is your family. You will stay put. Do you read me? Loud and clear. Agent. I hung up. I sat in the quiet room, the desk lamp humming. Rowan would be there. She would be professional. She would set a perimeter. She would play by the rules. But my mother wrote these rules. This wasn't a federal case. This was a family drama, and it required a final act. I checked the audio recorder in my pocket. I checked the battery on my phone. I stood up. Loud and clear, I said to the empty room. Then I walked out, and I headed to Hawkshead. Alone. Rowan had ordered me to stay put. An order is an order, but I'm a logistics specialist. I know that sometimes. The asset on the ground has to overrule the commander at the desk. Rowan was setting a perimeter, a net, but she was fishing for criminals. I was hunting my family. She wanted a prosecution. I wanted a confession. Before I left the co-working space, I began my own preparations. I didn't have my Aegis gear, but the civilian world provided. I took the burner phone I'd bought and set it to live stream, an encrypted, one-time use link. I sent the link to Rowan's official email. No message, just the link. She would see it. She would know I was on site. She would have eyes and ears, whether she liked it or not. I took the mini recorder, a simple digital voice recorder the size of my thumb, and clipped it to the inside of my bra, just beneath the sternum. It was my insurance. The live stream could fail. The recorder was local. I took the phone I'd been using, my clean phone, and activated the camera, propping it in my breast pocket, the lens masked by the dark fabric, pointing out a crude, improvised body cam. I sent one last text to Piper, from my original, compromised phone. I had to assume Marlene was monitoring it, but I also knew Piper had turned her own phone off. This was a message in a bottle, just in case. If Mom calls, don't answer. Go to Sarah's. Stay there. Stay safe. I deleted the message from my end and powered that phone down, tossing it into the glove compartment. It was an anchor I no longer needed. Hawkshead storage was not in a good part of town. It was on the industrial waterfront, a place of rust, seagulls, and the constant smell of low tide and creosote. The rain had picked up, a cold, driving Pacific Northwest drizzle that turned the night into a smear of reflected light. The air was heavy, thick with moisture, and the kind of oppressive silence that comes before a verdict. The only sound was the tink-tink-tink of a loose piece of metal siding on a nearby building. I parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot, moving in the shadows of stacked shipping containers. My military training took over. I was no longer a daughter. I was an operative. I assessed the terrain, checked my sightlines, and controlled my breathing, the cold air burning my lungs. Rowan's people were nowhere to be seen. Good. They were holding back, setting the perimeter just as she'd said. They were waiting for the suspects to be secure inside the location. I was already inside. I saw the vehicles as I rounded the last row of containers. They were parked in a cluster, right in front of the long, low building for Unit 41. The big, black, immaculate SUV, my mother's car, the Fortress, my father's slightly older, dark gray sedan, the silent accomplice, and a battered, dark blue pickup truck with a contractor's toolbox bolted to the bed. It was parked carelessly, angled in, blocking the other 2 cars. Tully's truck. The roll-up door to Unit 41 was open, but only by about 3 feet, just enough for a person to duck under. A single, harsh utility light from inside splashed onto the wet asphalt, illuminating the figures moving within. I found my position, a massive rusted-out shipping container, marked Maersk, sat parallel to the unit, creating a perfect, dark alley. I was 40 feet away, close enough to hear, close enough to see. I pulled out the burner phone. My hands were steady. I checked the live stream. The red live icon was pulsing. I turned the volume all the way down. Rowan was now my overwatch. I angled the phone, resting it on a metal strut, getting a clear view of the open storage unit door. I activated the digital recorder in my pocket. A silent, double click. A faint vibration confirmed it was recording. Now, I just had to wait. The voices from inside were muffled at first, metallic and echoing. "Don't like this. Marlene, this is sloppy. We should have just bleached the files at the office." That was my father, Thomas. His voice was thin, high with a panic I'd never heard before. "The office is compromised. Thomas, the warehouse is compromised." My mother's voice, she was calm. Not just calm, she was in command. This was her element, the cold, logical, an absolute zero of her control. "You and your slip of the tongue. We do this here, we do it now, and we do it my way. Mark, open the safe." A third voice, Mark Tully. It was rough, gravelly, full of resentment. "This wasn't part of the deal. Marlene, I move contracts. I don't do this. This is destruction of evidence. This is a whole new level." "You're already on this level. Mark," she snapped. "You've been taking payments from Quarry Ridge for 2 years. You're in this. Now open the safe." I heard the heavy metallic clank of a safe handle, followed by the whirring of tumblers. I risked a look, shifting my position, my phone camera following. Inside, I could see them. The unit was packed with boxes, furniture covered in white sheets, but in the back, bolted to the concrete floor, was a large, black, industrial safe. Tully was on his knees, working the combination. My father was pacing, his hands in his hair, a caricature of a man in over his head. My mother, Marlene, stood perfectly still. She was watching Tully's hands, her arms crossed, her entire posture radiating an impatient, lethal energy. The safe door swung open with a heavy, satisfying thud. "It's all there," Tully said, relief in his voice. "The binders, the drives." "Of course it's all here," Marlene said. "Get it out, all of it, the drives especially." "And then what?" my father asked, his voice cracking. "We just burn it? Here?" "Don't be a fool, Thomas," she said. "We're not burning anything. We're changing it. The hard copies go into the smelter box. The digital copies. Mark has new drives. We're executing a final change." I saw Tully hand her a small, silver thumb drive. "We upload the new ledgers," Marlene explained, as if to a child. "The ones that show a clean audit, we wipe the originals. We replace the backups. We've been over this." "And the old phrase?" Tully asked. "The old phrase is dead," Marlene said. "The new cluster is Sparrow, Delta, 13. She was changing the access codes. The final, digital lock, change. It was always the code word. My father shook his head. Finally stopping his pacing, he looked defeated. "It's not going to work, even if we do this. McKenna, she's not going to stay quiet." "Oh, Thomas." My mother's voice was soft, and it was the most terrifying sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of a predator, pitying its prey. "You still don't understand, do you? McKenna is the plan." My father looked at her, confused. What? What do you mean?" "She's the one who was at Fort Irwin. She's the one whose signature is on the DOD forms. She's the one whose clearance just got suspended. She's the disgruntled reservist," Marlene said, her voice dripping with scorn. "She's the one who copied the files. She's the one who tried to blackmail us. She's the one who's been talking to CID. "Marlene," my father whispered, horrified. "She will take the fall, Thomas," Marlene said, her voice as hard as the concrete floor. "I'll make sure of it. She'll be so buried in reasonable doubt and accusations. She'll spend the next 10 years in court trying to clear her name, while we We will be fine. She was going to frame me, not just as a scapegoat, as the mastermind. I heard a new sound. Tully. He was standing up. So that's it? Tully said, his voice low. You're just going to throw your own kid under the bus, and you expect me to, what, just walk away? You'll walk away with the $50,000 I just transferred to your account, Marlene said, not even looking at him. 50,000? Tully laughed. A short, ugly bark. No, I don't think so. I've been listening to you. I heard what she'll do to her own daughter. What do you think she'll do to me? The second this is done? He was right. He was the loose end. I'm keeping the original drive, Tully said, pulling a USB from the safe. My insurance, and the price just went up to 500,000, $500,000, or I walk out of here, right now, and I call Agent Rowan myself. I've got her number on speed dial. My mother finally turned. The look on her face wasn't fear. It was annoyance. He had become an inconvenience. Mark, don't be stupid, she said. Stupid is working for you, he spat. I'm the one who knows where all the bodies are buried. I'm the one who can tie the defective gear to the black market sales. I'm the one who can prove you were the one selling those NVGs. This transit file is just the start. That was it, the final confession, the last piece of the puzzle. It wasn't just fraud. It was black market arms dealing. It was time. I had the live stream running. I had the audio recorder running. I had the confession. I had the conspiracy. I took a deep, steadying breath. I pressed the live button on the burner phone screen, ensuring the feed was active and being recorded by Rowan's servers. Then I stepped out of the shadows. I walked calmly, my boots crunching on the wet gravel, and stopped at the edge of the light spilling from the storage unit. Changing the code won't change the truth, Mom. The effect was instantaneous. It was as if I had thrown a grenade into the room. My father, Thomas, made a sound, a short, strangled gasp, and recoiled, stumbling back into a stack of boxes. Marlene, my mother, froze. Her face, for the first time in my 33 years of life, was completely, totally, and beautifully unmasked. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was pure, unadulterated shock. The shock of a master strategist whose prized queen had just been taken off the board by a pawn. Mark Tully reacted. He was not family. He was a criminal. He saw a threat. "Who the hell?" he yelled, and his hand dove to the small of his back, under his jacket. I saw the glint of metal. He was pulling a handgun. He was too slow. He was a panicked man with a cheap weapon. I was a trained soldier. But before I could even move, the night exploded. The sound was deafening, not a gunshot. It was a wail, a dozen sirens, all coming from different directions, all converging on this one. Single point. Red and blue lights flooded the storage yard, turning the rain into a cascade of colored diamonds, painting the inside of the unit in the frantic, flashing colors of justice. Tully stopped, his hand still on his gun, his head snapping toward the sound. Marlene's face crumpled, the shock finally, turning into the one thing I had waited my whole life to see. Defeat. The perimeter was closing. Rowan had been listening, and she had timed it perfectly. The sirens were a razor blade, slicing through the night. They were no longer a distant promise. They were a physical, screaming reality, converging on our location. In the sudden, strobing silence of the unit, we were 3 animals and 1 soldier, frozen by the approaching pack. My father, Thomas, looked like a man who had seen a ghost, the ghost of his own future, dressed in prison orange. Tully's hand was still frozen on the grip of his handgun, and my mother, Marlene, her face a beautiful, brittle mask of pure shock, was staring at me. I moved first. My training cut through the panic. I walked past my mother as if she were a piece of furniture, past the open safe spilling its secrets. I took the burner phone, the one still streaming, from my pocket. Its tiny red live light was pulsing, a miniature, electronic heartbeat. I placed it high on a metal filing cabinet, its lens aimed perfectly, capturing the entire scene. "Everything is on the record. Agent Rowan," I said, my voice projecting, calm and clear. "You have the room." Marlene's shock fractured. She was a general, and even on a lost battlefield, she would try to command. "McKenna," she said, her voice strained, a desperate attempt to retrieve the threads of her control. "Stop this. Now. You don't understand." "I understand," I said, turning to face her. The flashing red and blue lights were here, painting the wet asphalt, the beams slicing into the storage unit, catching the rain and the dust. "You don't," she insisted, taking a step toward me. "This is not a game. This is business. It's complex. You are in over your head. McKenna, you don't understand the complexities of what I have to do to protect this family." "I understand complexity." "Mom," I said, my voice flat, sharp, and cold. I took a step toward her. She, instinctively, took a step back, the power dynamic of 33 years just inverted, and we both felt the snap. "I understand that you signed my name, Webb. I understand that you forged my signature on a federal contract. I understand that you did it while I was on a military base, serving my country. I understand that you built me as your scapegoat." "This is insane," Tully snarled. The sirens were deafening now, the sound of tires on wet gravel. He was a rat, and the trapdoor had just slammed shut. His eyes darted between me and the flashing lights, calculating. He was no longer a conspirator, he was just a criminal. Cornered. He lunged. Not for me, not for the door. He lunged for the open safe. He didn't grab the cash. He didn't grab the hard drives. He grabbed the binder, the thick black 3-ring binder, the transit file. "I'm not going down for this," he screamed, his voice raw, clutching the binder to his chest like a shield. "I'm not going down for her." He was looking at the door, at the agents he knew were coming, his body tensing to run. "That's the transit Q3 adjustments binder, isn't it, Mark?" I said, my voice cutting through his panic. He froze. I looked directly at the phone on the cabinet. "For the record, Agent Rowan, Mr. Tully is now in possession of the primary evidence ledger. The hard copy?" I didn't need to see the file. I had memorized its soul. "It's the file," I said, my voice projecting, loud and clear for the audio recorder. "That details contract number Delta Sierra 779er. It outlines the illegal, off-book sale of night vision equipment to unauthorized third parties. It contains handwritten notes on the kickbacks paid directly to Mr. Tully." "Shut up," he screamed. "Shut your mouth." "It details the creation of the shell company, Quarry Ridge Parts, specifically to launder those bribes," I continued, relentless, a verbal barrage. "And," I finished, my gaze locking on my mother, "it contains the authorization memo for the Nevada shipment, the one with my forged signature." Marlene, oh my God. My father was shrinking, collapsing against a stack of boxes, his face a mask of abject terror. "She knows everything. She knows about the sales." He looked at me, his eyes wide, his resistance shattered. "McKenna, please. It was just, we've been doing it for 6 quarters. Just 6. It got out of hand. That's all. It just got out of hand." It was the confession, the pure, unadulterated, recorded confession. "Thank you, Dad," I said, my voice like ice. "The live stream appreciates your honesty." The sound of car doors slamming, the shouts of "CID, federal agents." "Turn it off," Marlene shrieked. Her mask of control was gone, burned away by pure, animal panic. She lunged, not for me, but for the phone on the cabinet. "Turn that camera off!" Her jump was pathetic. She was too short. She clawed at the side of the metal cabinet, her nails scraping, her face contorted. "Turn it off!" Tully saw his escape was gone. He saw the black-clad agents, shadows in the flashing lights, starting to spill from their vehicles, weapons drawn, He saw his world ending. He did the last, most desperate thing. He grabbed a red metal jerry can from a shelf, lighter fluid. In the same motion, his other hand, the one not holding the binder, pulled a Zippo lighter from his pocket. "If I'm burning!" he screamed, his face a mask of sweat and rage. "It's all burning!" He flipped the Zippo open, the small flame jumping, and he started to splash the fluid onto the transit binder. He was a panicked man in a cheap suit, reeking of fear. I was a soldier. I didn't think. I moved. I crossed the 10 feet between us in 2 bounds. He saw me coming, a blur, and he raised the lighter, his thumb moving to the spark wheel. I didn't go for the lighter. I didn't go for the binder. I went for his center of mass. I hit him with a full-force shoulder check, all my weight, all my training, all my rage, slammed into his sternum. The breath whooshed out of him in a pained grunt. The lighter flew from his hand, skittering across the concrete, its small flame vanishing. The binder flew from his other hand, it hit the ground, and the rings burst open. A snowstorm, a blizzard of paper, of evidence, of sin, invoices, shipping manifests, handwritten notes on yellow legal paper, all of it went fluttering, scattering across the floor of the unit, caught in the wind from the open door. Tully and I went down. He crashed backward, and I landed on top of him, my knee driving into his chest, my hand on his throat. He was gasping. The wind knocked out of him. And in that precise, chaotic moment, the world was filled with light. Not just the police lights, a new light, a sharp, brilliant pop flash of a camera. Flash, flash, flash. I looked up, my knee still on Tully's chest. Standing in the opening of the storage unit, framed by the rain and the strobing chaos, was Piper. She wasn't crying, she wasn't hiding, she was standing in the rain. Her phone held high in both hands, and the flash was going off, again and again and again. She was taking pictures, she was documenting. She was gathering her own evidence. Flash, a picture of me, pinning a gasping Tully to the ground. Flash, a picture of the scattered, incriminating papers, spread like dead leaves all over the concrete. Flash, a picture of our father, cowering by the boxes, his hands over his face, a broken, weeping man. And then, Piper's camera swiveled. It stopped. Flash. A single brutal picture, perfectly lit. My mother. Marlene had stopped her frantic attempt to get the camera. She was standing, frozen, in the middle of the room. Her hands were still half raised, her face a grotesque mask of disbelief. She wasn't looking at me. She wasn't looking at the cops. She was staring at Piper. She was staring at her youngest daughter, her pawn, her nest egg, her loyal, obedient, pliable little girl. And she was watching that little girl stand there, in the rain, her phone's camera flashing, taking her down, one photo at a time. Marlene saw us, both of us, her 2 daughters, one on the floor, one at the door, united. In that moment, I knew. She knew. She hadn't just lost the company. She hadn't just lost the money. She had lost everything. The game was over. CID? Hands in the air now. The room flooded with agents. They were fast. They were on me, on Tully, before I even had time to stand. He has a weapon, I yelled, my voice clear. Small of his back. Clear, an agent shouted. They hauled me up, spun me around, and then recognized me from my meeting with Rowan. It's Webb. She's the witness. She's secure. They hauled Tully to his feet, slamming him against the side of his own truck. I heard the ratchet of handcuffs. 2 other agents went to my father. He didn't resist. He just put his hands out, his eyes squeezed shut, and he let them cuff him. He was sobbing. Quiet, pathetic sounds. Agent Lila Rowan was the last one in. She was wearing a black CID windbreaker, and her face was like granite. She walked past the agents. She walked past me, her eyes just flickering to me for a second, a look of, "You're in so much trouble," before moving on. She walked right up to my mother. Marlene Barrett just stood there, among the scattered papers of her ruined life. She looked small. Rowan stopped a foot in front of her. She didn't raise her voice. "Marlene Barrett, you are under arrest for conspiracy, federal contract fraud, and—" As Rowan spoke the words, my mother's eyes finally found mine. They were empty. The fire was gone. The control was gone. There was nothing left. She just whispered, her voice so quiet, only I could hear it over the din of the rain and the police radios. "McKenna, you don't know what you've just done." The chaos of the next 60 seconds was a blur of black windbreakers, shouting, and the metallic ratchet of handcuffs. I was pulled to my feet by an agent, who just as quickly released me, his eyes scanning me for a threat before recognizing me. "Webb, you're clear. Stand back." I stood back. I watched. My training made me an observer, not a participant. They had Tully pressed against his truck, hands cuffed behind his back. Agent Rowan was in his face, her voice a low, furious hiss, drilling him. "You're done, Tully. You know you're done. Your partner, Marlene Barrett, just threw you to the wolves. She was going to frame her own daughter. You think you mean anything to her? You're a loose end." Tully was hyperventilating. The fight gone, replaced by the pathetic, sniveling terror of a man who just lost his future. "You have one chance," Rowan said, pressing. "Right here, right now. Who was the mastermind? Who directed the black market sales? Who set up the shells?" "Her!" Tully screamed, his head jerking toward my mother, who was being cuffed herself, her face a rigid white mask of stone. "It was always her. All of it. The transit file, the Nevada shipments, the bribes. It was all Marlene. I just moved the contracts. I just did what she said. I'll testify. I'll give you everything. Just get me away from her." He had flipped. In less than a minute, his entire world, his loyalty, his conspiracy, all of it traded for a few seconds of hope. While the agents processed them, my eyes swept the floor, the snowstorm of paper, the physical evidence of my family's corruption. It was a logistician's nightmare, a prosecutor's dream. Agents were already dropping evidence markers, their movements professional, sterile, turning this family storage unit into a federal crime scene. My gaze locked on something near the open safe. It wasn't paper. It was white plastic. It must have been in the binder Tully had grabbed. I walked over, my movements stiff. An agent looked up. "Ma'am, please don't touch." "I'm not," I said. I pointed. "Evidence marker. That's not a document." He looked, then tagged it. I knelt, not touching, and looked closer. It was a standard-issue bank keycard, the kind for a safe deposit box, scrawled on its white surface in black permanent marker. In my mother's elegant, controlled handwriting were 2 words. "Change, Harbor Key." My blood didn't just run cold. It stopped. It turned to slush. The whisper, at the café, my birthday, my mother leaning in. "Go and change." I had been so sure, so arrogant. I thought it was the safe at the BTL office. I thought I was brilliant for figuring out the diversion, but I was wrong. I was still 1 step behind her. The BTL safe, the transit file. That was just the internal problem. That was just the business fraud. The thing she was trying to lock down from me. Her internal threat. This was the real money. This was the external objective. The instruction to Piper, "Go and change," hadn't just been to change the safe combination at the office. That was just the first stop. The real mission. It was to go to Harbor Key Bank. It was to change the real ledgers, the real cash. I stood up, the world tilting. I looked for Piper. She was standing by a black CID sedan, her arms wrapped around herself, shivering, her face pale in the flashing lights. An agent was trying to drape a blanket over her shoulders, but she was just staring, disconnected. I walked over to her. Her eyes were blank, still in shock from her moment of defiance. "Piper," I said, My voice was low, intense. The word, change. You have to tell me. From our childhood. What did it mean? She looked at me, confused. What? McKenna? What are you talking about? Think, Piper, when we were kids, when Mom used that word, change. Her eyes unfocused, her mind traveling back, away from the sirens and the rain, to our childhood home, the one filled with bleach and scented candles. It was a game, she whispered, her voice trembling. It was our secret. What was the secret? I pressed. The money, she said, her voice cracking. When he would get upset about her spending, she would just smile. She'd pull me aside, and she'd whisper, "Time to play change." And what did you do? We'd go to her study. She had this big blue vase. It was always full of cash, $100 bills. She'd say, "The blue vase is visible," and she'd make me take the stacks, and we'd put them in a shoebox in the back of her closet. She'd laugh, and she'd say, "Now we've changed it. Now it's safe." Tears were rolling down her face. It was just a game, McKenna. It was just our game. It was never a game, Piper, I said, the final toxic layer of my childhood peeling away. It was training. She was teaching you how to hide the illicit money. Change was never about locks. It was her code word for moving the real money, the money no one was supposed to see. I looked across the yard. I saw my father, Thomas, being put into a separate car. He was no longer the Marine, the strong, silent patriarch. He was just Thomas, a hollow man, a shield. He hadn't been the mastermind. He hadn't even been a partner. He was just the man who stood by and let the blue vase get filled. He was the coward, the silent accomplice. His sin wasn't action. It was inaction. He was just the front. I turned back to the center of the storm. Agent Rowan was standing by my mother. Marlene was cuffed, her posture still impossibly straight, a queen in chains. An agent was bagging her personal effects, her phone, her purse. As the agent held her phone, the screen lit up. A new text message. "Agent," I said, stepping forward. "That's live?" Rowan nodded, her eyes sharp. She took the phone from the agent. Holding it with a gloved hand, she read the screen. "A new contact," Rowan said, her voice tight. "The contact name is Harbor Light." My blood electrified. Harbor Key, Harbor Light. "The message," Rowan said, her eyes burning with a new intensity. Just 3 words. "Did you make it?" Marlene was playing for time, this person. Harbor Light was the real partner. They were supposed to be meeting. "We need that number," I said. "Now?" "Already on it," Rowan said to a tech beside her. "Run it, fast." The tech tapped on a handheld device. "Agent, the number is registered, Ella Voss." The name hit me like a physical blow. "Ella Voss," I said, my voice hollow. "She's the chief financial officer. She's the CFO of BTL." "Run Voss," Rowan ordered. "Cross-reference her with every shell. Northline, Quarry R, all of them." "Negative, Agent," the tech said, his fingers flying. "She's not on Northline, not on Quarry Ridge, not on Halberd. She's clean. Wait, I've got a 4th shell. Atlas Remanufacture. It wasn't in the transit file. It's a newer entity. And, oh my God, it's been receiving massive, structured payments from a commercial account at Harbor Key Bank." The final piece, the key. "Ella Voss is the sole signatory," the tech finished, his voice grim. This was the real operation, the transit file, the black market arms. That was the old fraud. That was the messy, ugly business Marlene was trying to bury, the one she was framing me for. Atlas Remanufacture. That was the new company, the clean one, the one being funded by the old crime, ready to rise from the ashes, piloted by Ella Voss. Marlene was trying to change her entire criminal enterprise. "She's live," Rowan said, her voice all ice and fire. "Voss is live. She just pinged Marlene. She's waiting. She doesn't know this op is blown." Rowan's head snapped up. She was no longer a detective. She was a hunter. "We're moving," she said to her team. "We're moving on Harbor Key Bank. Now, Voss is almost certainly there, liquidating the accounts, triggering the change. We're going to catch her in the act." "I'm coming with you," I said. Rowan looked at me, the rain dripping from her cap. "Webb, you're my witness. You're not an agent." "You need me," I said, stepping into her space, my voice leaving no room for argument. "You're walking into a bank. I'm the only one who knows Ella Voss. I'm the one who knows her handwriting, her voice, her process. I worked with her. I'm not her family. I'm not compromised. I'm your best asset. I'm your witness. And I am going to help you shut this down." Rowan stared at me for a long, hard second. The sound of the rain, the idling engines, the radio chatter, it all faded. She nodded. Once. "Get in the car." I turned to go. "McKenna." Piper's voice. It was small. I turned back. She had finally taken the blanket, and she was clutching it around her shoulders. Her face was a ruin of running mascara and a terrible newfound clarity. Are they taking Mom to jail?" she whispered. "Yes, Piper." Her face crumpled. I don't want her to go to prison." The childish instinct, the bond, even now. "But," she said, her voice strengthening, her eyes meeting mine. "But I don't want to lie anymore. I can't. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be her." I looked at my little sister, my scared, complicit, broken, brave little sister, the one who had showed up with a camera, the one who had finally, in the flashing lights, chosen a side. I walked back to her. I put my hands on her shoulders. "Piper, look at me," I said. That feeling, that choice, not wanting her to be hurt, but refusing to lie for her, refusing to be a part of the lie. That right there, that is the definition of growing up. I pulled her into a hug. It wasn't soft. It was hard. A soldier's embrace, a transfer of strength. I held her for a second, then pushed her back, holding her at arm's length. "Go with that agent," I said, pointing to a female officer. "Give your statement. Tell the truth, every part of it. The change game, the USB, the ferry terminal, all of it. Don't hide. Don't lie. Just be done." "McKenna." "I'll be back," I said. I released her. I turned my back on the ruin of Hawkshead Storage, on the ghosts of my family. I walked toward Agent Rowan's car, not looking back. The sky was still heavy, the rain was still falling, but it was no longer silent. The air was filled with the sound of sirens, and for the first time in my life, it sounded like freedom. We drove in a convoy, a silent, flashing procession of judgment. The Hawkshead raid was just the prelude. This was the finale. Agent Rowan had made the call. She was bringing the entire conspiracy to a single point of failure. I rode in her car. In the back, Marlene sat, cuffed, her face a stone. My father, Thomas, was in a separate car, his silence a shroud. Piper, now a material witness, was in another. Her shock replaced by a hard, brittle resolve. Rowan wasn't just catching a final suspect. She was collapsing the entire network, and she was doing it in front of all the players. The Harbor Key Bank was not a bank. It was a private, anonymous vault, perched on the edge of the darkest part of the Tacoma Wharf. The wind was a physical thing, driving the rain in horizontal, needle-like sheets that stung the skin. The air smelled of salt, diesel, and desperation. The CID team, black-clad and silent, fanned out, creating a perimeter that was invisible in the storm. This was not a raid. It was a trap. Rowan, her face grim under her CID cap, looked at me. "Voss is inside. She's been in the vault for 40 minutes. She's changing the assets. She thinks Marlene is the distraction. She's about to find out she's the target. What's the play? I asked. No play, Rowan said. She has to come out, and when she does, she'll see her partner. That's you. Rowan nodded to the agent bringing Marlene out of the car. They stood my mother in the rain, uncuffed, but flanked by 2 agents. She looked small, drowned, but her posture was still rigid. She was the bait. We waited. The seconds stretched into minutes. The only sound was the wind screaming over the metal roofs and the percussive slap of the rain. Then, the heavy glass door of the vault building hissed open. Ella Voss stepped out. She was immaculate, even in this weather. A trench coat over a sharp suit, a heavy, hardened briefcase in her hand. She looked up, expecting to see a car. Instead, she saw Marlene. Voss froze, her face so professional, so calm, just shattered. She saw Marlene. She saw the agents. She saw the trap. And she saw me. Voss didn't scream. She didn't surrender. She ran. She dropped the briefcase and sprinted, not for the street, but for the docks, toward the black, churning water. She's going for the boat, I yelled. The outline was correct. The escape route. CID, go, go, Rowan commanded. Agents swarmed, but Voss was fast. She vaulted a chain-link fence and landed on the floating pier. A sleek black motorboat was tied there, bobbing frantically in the storm. Her escape. She fumbled at the dock gate, a magnetized lock separating the pier from the land. She was pulling a keycard from her pocket. The card, I shouted at Rowan. The gate. An agent was right behind her, but he was on the wrong side of the locked gate. He couldn't reach her. She's getting away, he yelled. Rowan looked at me, a question in her eyes. I didn't hesitate. I held out the plastic keycard I had picked up at Hawkshed, the one that said change, harbor key. Rowan grabbed it. Tech, this card. Can you use it? Clone it? Get that gate open. No, wait, I said, my mind running the logistics. Don't open it. Lock it. Rowan stared at me. That's her boat, I said, pointing. The boat is inside the gate. Voss is inside the gate. Lock her in. Rowan's face split into a grim smile. She barked an order into her radio. All units. She's on the pier. Use the master panel. Lock the gate. Box her in. Voss finally got her own card out. She swiped it. The lock beeped. A hostile red. She swiped it again. Red. She turned. She saw the agents on the other side of the gate, their weapons now drawn, aimed. She was trapped on a tiny piece of floating wood, with nowhere to go but the freezing black water. Ella Voss, the CFO, the mastermind, the harbor light, slowly, her shoulders slumping in the rain, raised her hands. The trap was sprung. They brought Voss back, cuffed, her face a mask of wet, defeated rage. They sat her on the curb, and then there was just us, the family. Rowan brought Marlene, Thomas, and Piper together into the harsh, sterile headlights of her SUV. I stood opposite them. The rain was finally, mercifully, slowing to a drizzle. This was it, the final reckoning. Marlene looked at me. The iron was gone. The control had been breached. She was just a woman, a cold, wet, desperate woman. She looked past me, at Piper. Piper, Marlene whispered, her voice breaking. Piper, baby, look at me. Piper just stared, her face white, her arms wrapped around herself. Marlene Barrett, Rowan said, her voice official. You have... Wait, Marlene snapped, not at Rowan, but at me. She was begging, not for herself, for her narrative. McKenna, she pleaded, her eyes locking onto mine. Please, Piper, let Piper go. She didn't know. She just did what I told her. She's just a child. I'll give you the USB, the one I took from her, the real one. She was still lying, still bargaining. There is no deal. Mom, I said, my voice hollow. I unzipped my pocket, And I brought out the digital recorder. I brought out the burner phone. Its live light still, somehow, pulsing. I placed them on the hood of the car, the camera lens pointing right at her. "There is no more change," I said. "There is only the truth. You want to protect Piper? Then you confess, right now, on camera. You tell them about the code. You tell them about the transit file. You tell them about my signature." She stared at the phone, at the red light, at her reflection in the dark screen. She stammered. She looked at Voss, cuffed. She looked at Thomas, weeping silently. She looked at Piper. "Say it," I commanded. And she broke. I did it," Marlene whispered, her voice cracking, the confession tearing out of her. I gave the order to change the codes, at the office, at the bank, all of it. "And the signature," I pressed, my voice like a surgeon's knife. "And the signature," she screamed, the dam bursting. "The M. Webb signature. I authorized it. I used her name. I used my daughter's name. Are you happy now? I did it." It was done. The words were in the air, captured, recorded, live. My father, Thomas, let out a sound, a sob that seemed to come from the deepest part of the earth. He was shaking, his face in his hands. "Thomas Barrett," Rowan said, her voice flat, turning to him. I knew," he choked out, not even looking up. I didn't stop her. I didn't do anything. I just let it happen. For years. I was silent." He looked up, his eyes meeting mine, red-rimmed, destroyed. My sin was the silence. God, McKenna, I'm so sorry." "It's on the record, Thomas," Rowan said, her voice holding no pity. Piper stepped forward. She was shaking, but she was no longer crying. She held something in her hand, a small black USB drive, the one she had supposedly bleached. She told me to destroy this," Piper said, her voice clear, projecting in the sudden quiet. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to Rowan. "She made me watch her bleach one, but this was the copy McKenna gave me, the real one. I told her it was corrupted. I lied." She held it out to Agent Rowan. "This is the last one. This is the last piece of the lie." Rowan took it. She held it up, the final piece of evidence, the last USB. "Marlene Barrett," Rowan said, her voice booming in the night. "Ella Voss, Thomas Barrett, Mark Tully. You are all under arrest for conspiracy to commit federal fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and violation of the Arms Export Control Act." She read them their rights. The words were sharp, final, cutting through the damp air. Agents moved in. They separated them, Marlene, into one car, Thomas, into another, Voss, into a third, the end of an empire. Rowan walked over to me. The rain had almost stopped. "Piper's statement, and that USB, that closes the loop," she said, her voice low. "And your father's confession, that was everything." She looked at me, her eyes tired but sharp. "I just got the call from command. Based on the evidence, and your testimony, your suspension is lifted, your clearance is reinstated, your jacket, it's clean, Webb, you're clear." I nodded. It felt distant, a problem from another life. I turned, and I watched them put my mother in the back of the CID car. She wasn't crying. She wasn't fighting. She was just gone, a hollow shell. She looked at me through the rain-streaked glass. I walked up to the window. She lowered her head. "Mom," I said, my voice quiet, just for her. She looked up. "You can change the locks," I said. "You can change the codes. You can change the stories. You can change the ledgers." I leaned in, my voice a whisper, just like hers had been, all those lifetimes ago at the café. "But you can never, ever change the truth." I stepped back. The door slammed shut. The car pulled away, its blue lights reflecting. Silent, on the wet wharf. The rain stopped. The heavy, oppressive weight was gone. The air was cold, but it was clean. Piper came and stood beside me. She didn't speak. She just stood there. We watched the taillights of the convoy disappear. The blue flashes vanishing into the city. There was no grand finale, no explosion. Just the sound of the water, lapping against the pier, the end of the storm. I had come home, to a birthday party that was a lie, and now, I was finally, truly, free. The case was closed, but my own door, the one I had kept locked, barred, and guarded, it was finally closed, too, and this time, I was the only one with the key. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I am so grateful you spent this time with me. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let me know. I'd love to connect and hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories. Hit that like button, and to really help us out, smash that hype button to help this story be heard by so many more.